I am so glad you joined us today to discuss a very important topic that touches every single one of us. How do we foster resilience during this pandemic? As an abnormal psychology student, I am exploring why it is that some people have difficulty dealing with a trauma or other stressful life event, while others emerge relatively unscathed. How is it that some individuals seem to be coping relatively well with the pandemic and others not so well? We can turn to the resilience model for some answers. Resilience is basically how we are able to keep going on in life, how we are able to recover despite facing those stressors. According to the authors of my textbook, Sue and colleagues, resilience encompasses, quote, maintaining emotional equilibrium, coping with stress and hardship, facing adversity with strength, recovering from trauma, and recovering from mental illness, unquote. So basically, resilience is how we deal with the challenges in life. Let's focus on the strengths and protective factors each one of us has to foster that resilience. One of the numerous factors that influences an individual's resilience is perceived personal control.
Regarding personal control, my professor believes that a significant challenge that humans face is finding out what we can control as opposed to what we cannot control. She believes that she should write a book one day called C is for Control because of how many mental illnesses stem from control issues. Depression, anxiety, OCD, substance abuse issues, eating disorders, just to name a few. Some people believe that they can control more than they can or want to control more than they can, while others believe they don't have as much power over aspects of their life as they actually do.
A couple of my classmates consulted with Lakeland psychologist Dr. Ken Browner. Dr. Browner mentioned a constructive worry exercise that can help you put things into perspective. You think about what you can and cannot do about the things bothering you in an effort to avoid wasting time being stressed out over things that you can't control. The exercise involves creating 3 columns to help you organize your thoughts and realize what is actually worth worrying about. The first column, you should write down what is worrying you or stressing you out. The second column is for writing what you can actually do to help the situation listed in the first column. The third column is for writing what you cannot do or change. This reminds you that every part of every problem can't necessarily be solved. As Dr. Browner wrote, and I quote, "One of the primary goals is to have a time and place for worry so that you don't feel the need to be worrying constantly, during study time, sleep time, etc. If you find yourself worrying when trying to sleep, for instance, you can then remind yourself that you already did your worrying. Know what you can and can't do about the problem, and know that you will have more time to worry about it tomorrow." End quote.
Science has shown that restriction of a non-human animal's movements will result in measurably higher stress levels, and humans are no different. As humans, and especially as Americans, we value our autonomy and our ability to come and go as we please. One action that helps to combat feelings of powerlessness or helplessness we experience when we are told that we cannot behave freely is to take personal control of our situation. It is now February of 2021. There is a growing body of research that has already been published regarding psychology and the coronavirus. One such study, published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, found a link between perceived personal control and mental health during COVID-19 confinement. A higher level of perceived personal control was found to be related to lower levels of anxiety and depression and a higher level of resilience. There is so much about this pandemic that seems out of our control. Instead of thinking about the things that we cannot do or how bad things are, we can focus on what our own personal situation looks like for us and what we can do. It's not in my control that a pandemic is going on right now. It is in my control what I do to try to end this pandemic, such as following recommended safety protocol. I can wash my hands properly and frequently. I can use hand sanitizer when necessary, and I can wear a face mask. I can engage in social distancing and quarantine as needed. I can maintain my own personal routine, practice self-care, and not compare my situation to others. By focusing on what we can do rather than what we cannot do and what we cannot control, allows us to revive our own personal sense of control and helps us to maintain a more positive attitude overall.
One of my classmates recently watched a TED Talks presentation titled The 3 Secrets of Resilient People. Dr. Lucy Hone makes the point that adversity does not discriminate. Resilient people know that suffering is part of life, but they can manage things within their control. They can also constantly ask if the decisions that they make are beneficial to them. This relates to the concept of locus of control. This refers to the extent that individuals believe they have control over their lives. Do you think that what happens to you is largely determined by your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors? If so, you have a strong internal locus of control. You believe that you control your own destiny due to your efforts. You attribute your successes and failures due to internal factors. Or do you think that what happens to you is significantly determined by your chance and or powerful others? If so, you have a dominant external locus of control. You believe your life is controlled by forces outside of you. Not surprisingly, a recent study published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health found that people with a higher level of external locus of control are more likely to experience depression, anxiety, and stress symptoms as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The research concluded, quote, "In an uncertain pandemic, feeling in control of one's fate therefore appears to be protective against negative mental health impact. Promoting a more internal locus of control may be beneficial for mental health more generally, but especially during a worldwide crisis such as the current pandemic," unquote.
What are some more examples of what we can and cannot control during this pandemic? I can't control other people. However, what is in my control is how I treat others and how I react to others. In fact, new research published in the Gerontologist Journal indicates that helping others during the COVID-19 pandemic is associated with higher positive emotions and lower negative emotions. Helping others can occur in the context of formal volunteering or informal volunteering, like helping a neighbor. It includes something basic, like supporting someone with a listening ear. You can volunteer virtually, drop off essential items to an elderly person, or let someone vent to you without judgment. It's simple. If you want to simultaneously help yourself and others during the pandemic, be kind. As one of my classmates wrote, and I quote, "While we may not have control over another person, we do have control over ourselves." End quote.
I would like to share a reflection that one of my classmates wrote in a discussion board forum. Quote, "We cannot control losing a job or being cut due to the pandemic, but we can control how it affects us. That might mean going back to school or finding a new job that you are more qualified for or enjoy more. It may also result in the startup of a business that you are passionate about and have been wanting to create, but may not have had the time to do so. We may not be able to control losing a job, but we can control the outcome and what we do so as a result of job loss." Unquote. Regarding a different area of control, let's consider screen time. In these unprecedented times of distance and isolation, so very many of us find solace in phone calls, texts, social media, television, and movies. If we have this technology, why do we still feel so overtired and overwhelmed? We need to be mindful not only of how long we stare at our screens, but of the actual content that we allow into our minds. I do not need to hear or read about the pandemic 24/7. In particular, our phones are excellent at commandeering our days and nights. We need to be able to put our phones down, turn off notifications for an hour or two, and just breathe. Listen to the birds, watch the trees sway, or stare up at the night sky. That is in my control.
Of course, some screen time can be helpful when we cannot physically be around others. For example, it allows us to stay socially connected and to take online classes. No one can dispute that technology has certainly been helpful in some ways during this pandemic. Speaking of technology, there are some great mental health apps out there. Life can be overwhelming at times, especially during a pandemic. Sometimes we need a little extra support. It's okay to not be okay. For individuals who may be struggling, you are not alone. Often, people do not seek out professional help for many reasons, including fear of stigmatization, or maybe not even recognizing that they need help or not knowing how to get help. I would like to tell you about a self-help app called Sunvelo. Sunvelo helps self-monitor anxiety, stress, and depression by providing tools for meditation, guiding thoughts, goal setting, and maintaining healthy daily habits. Users can interact with each other through discussion boards on the app. It is available through the Google Play Store and is compatible with Android devices and iPhones. Just search the word Sunvello, which is spelled Sanvello. If you are a Lakeland student, premium access is free. If you are not a Lakeland student, full access is around $10 a month. And it may even be covered by your health insurance. Sunvello is accessible 24 hours a day. It is in my control if I choose to seek mental help when needed. Thank you.
If you or a loved one are struggling during these difficult times, please remember you are not alone, and together, we are resilient. Personal counseling and psychological services are available to every Lakeland student through the Counseling Center at 440-525-7200. If you or a loved one are seeking substance or mental health treatment services in the community, please call 440-918-2000 to reach the Compass Line, a service of the Lake County Adams Board. Operators can connect you, regardless of insurance, to services not only in Lake County, but surrounding counties as well. If you or a loved one are experiencing a crisis, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or text the Crisis Text Line by texting 4HOPE to 741-741. If this is a life-threatening emergency, please dial 911.